While the administration grapples with domestic challenges, new and alarming reports on suspected threats from Russia have emerged. And all of it comes as President Biden and Putin officially announced a meeting in Geneva next month. This week, the White House acknowledging that hackers infiltrated the email system of the U.S. development agency, USAID, sending out genuine-looking emails to more than 7,000 accounts across 350 organizations, human rights groups, nonprofits, some of the Kremlin's most vocal critics. Microsoft identified the hack and said Nobelium was responsible, the same Russian-based group behind the SolarWinds attack. That massive hack, the full extent of the damage still unknown, stretched deep into the email systems of numerous federal government agencies, including the Treasury and Pentagon. The Russian government denied responsibility for any of these attacks.
This isn't the only case of malicious cyber activity of likely Russian origin. This is a sophisticated actor who did their best to hide their tracks.
Cyber attacks are just one area of suspected Russian activity. The National Security Council now determined to find out who and what is responsible for those more than 100 reported cases of so-called Havana syndrome, the mysterious and serious health incidents that first affected Americans in Cuba, now reaching U.S. spies, diplomats, and other personnel around the globe. Former CIA operative Mark Polymeropoulos says Russia must be behind it. He became dangerously ill during a trip to Moscow in 2017 with debilitating symptoms that have plagued him ever since.
I woke up in the middle of the night with an incredible case of vertigo. The room was spinning. I had a splitting headache. Every day for 3 years, I've had a splitting headache, a migraine headache in the back of my head. It's a headache that never goes away.
In an internal cable, the State Department urging employees worldwide to be on the lookout for those crippling symptoms, headaches, loss of vision, cognitive defects, and more. A National Academies of Sciences report conducted in December found the injuries were consistent with directed microwave radiation.
For the first time, it gave a very plausible explanation of what happened, which is a directed energy attack. We have, something, concrete that says what happened to us.
U.S. officials say they are not certain of the cause and can't say for certain Russia was involved, but acknowledge even domestic incidents are now under investigation. At least 2 of them reportedly occurred in the Washington area, one just feet from the White House. So let's bring in the experts on this. General Keith Alexander, former director of the National Security Agency and the first commander to lead U.S. Cyber Command. Niloufar Razi-Howe, cybersecurity fellow at the New American think tank, and ABC contributor Tom Bossert, who served as Homeland Security advisor to President Trump. Welcome to all of you. General Alexander, I want to start with you, and I want to start with those cyber attacks. Americans realize how serious these cyber attacks can be with the Colonial Pipeline. Of course, that was a ransomware attack, and they wanted money. But the SolarWinds and now the USAID attacks are different, but so serious. What are the hackers after?
Well, I think the Russian hackers are clearly after gaining intelligence on our country, on what the administration is doing, what President Biden is thinking, and what's coming up against Russia as they prepare, I think, for the upcoming talks between President Biden and Putin. They're stealing information. And, it's interesting, Martha, this is more blatant than I've seen in my career. They're going after this in the SolarWinds. Think 18,000 companies, and now, as you said, 7,000 more with this last U.S. aid attack, and the Colonial Pipeline. Even though they claim that was from hackers, I believe they're associated somehow. They're sending a message, and they're doing it blatantly. And they're going after our intelligence system, and they're saying, we can do this. We've got to fix it.
And it obviously did expose our vulnerability. So how do you fix it?
Well, I like what President Biden put in the executive order. It's public-private partnership. We have to build this solution together. The government can't do it by itself. You see, most of the attacks are going against the commercial sector. The government can't see them. We need to create a radar picture between the public and private sector that shows attacks in time to prevent them. Not talk about them after the breach, but prevent the attacks. So we need to work this together as a team. This is part of our future, and we've got to get good at it, and we've got to do it quickly. Both Russia and China are challenging us in this space, and it's shown that we're not ready. I think the executive order hits on part of it. We have to go faster. My experience, the private sector is ready. They're pushing forward. So this is where Congress and the administration, the government, and the private sector can really help fix this problem. We need to do it.
And Neil, I want to ask you, I know you've worked with several government agencies, and you testified before Congress about the SolarWinds attack and said there is simply no unifying governmental organization looking at future vulnerabilities. You heard what General Alexander said. What do you think has to happen?
Well, Martha, for anyone who is still asleep at the wheel, these attacks are a wake-up call, and they're a wake-up call about the new normal that we live in, which is strategic competition in cyberspace is happening every single day, whether it's the theft of defense secrets, intellectual property, personal identifiable information, for example, against political dissidents and activists. And it's only going to escalate over time. And the approach we've had, which is this whack-a-mole approach of dealing with issues as they arise, simply doesn't scale to the scope of the problem. We have adversaries who are creative, they're agile, they're bold. They are evading our best defenses. They're using our laws and regulations against us to launch these attacks. So we need to take a different perspective. We need to have, as the General said, a public-private partnership, an organization that's looking over the ridgeline to identify the future global threats, the future risk environment, and the vulnerabilities that we face so that we can develop the defenses for those. And we have great examples. I mean, if you look to World War II in Tuxedo Park, where Alfred Loomis pulled together the best and the brightest to solve the hardest technical problems and arguably change the course of the war, it has to be public-private, it has to be the best and the brightest, and it has to be strategic, not tactical.
But Tom, one of the problems there is that public-private. You're protecting government vulnerabilities and these companies. Colonial Pipeline, don't some companies just look and say, you know, it costs a lot of money to protect my system or to upgrade my system? You know, what's $5 million if I have to pay a ransom?
Even worse, some companies then view it as a cost of doing business when they do get hit. They pay the ransom and they come back online. So there's a number of things I'd like to change about the way we look at it, including in that question, are we just protecting individual companies, critical infrastructure, or as I see it, is the United States in a position to do something to stop the adversary? So if you get closer to the source, you end up with Russia, China, North Korea, Iran behind many of these cyber attacks. As you get farther on the endpoints, you get 3 trillion endpoints that we have to protect every day. So it's a very difficult challenge. If everyone's in this alone, though, individually against a Russian, Chinese, and increasingly combined Russian and Chinese effort, we're going to fail every time, whether it's an individual government agency or a pipeline operator. There's got to be a collective defense. That's generally General Alexander's point of view. So I agree, but public-private partnership suggests that we're going to partner to protect those endpoints. I think we have to do something far more direct. And I would add to the General's answer, I think Russia's doing more than just collecting intelligence. At this point, there's evidence that they are carrying out their strategic intent to reduce the U.S. in its influence and power. They're trying to do things to destabilize us, and destabilizing big companies like Microsoft is just one way.
And I want to move on to that so-called Havana syndrome. General Alexander, let me ask you quickly about that. The New Yorker had an excellent investigation this week that mentioned those directed energy devices, saying the working hypothesis is that agents of the GRU, the Russian military's intelligence service, have been aiming microwave radiation devices at U.S. officials to collect intelligence from their computers and cell phones, and that these devices can cause serious harm to the people they target. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And you've seen that, what's called the Havana syndrome. We've seen that, we've proven that. And they've done it before, and not just against our country, but in the same thing, it talked about Canada and others.
It's an incredibly bold move, though, an incredibly bold move. What do we do about that? How do you punish them if you do?
Yeah, so it's the same thing in cyber when you think about it. How do you push back? You've got to give the president and the administration the tools, and they have those, to look at this from a diplomatic, economic, military, across the whole spectrum, covert and overt. What are they going to do? And I think the president has sat in a number of meetings. I've been with him on some of those when he was vice president. they do it right. They'll get the National Security Council together and say, okay, what message are we going to send back, and how do we do this in the best interest of this nation? So I think that will be done right. But it does need to be pushed back, Martha. You've hit on a key point. This is egregious. This is blatant. And as Tom said, they're telling us, well, look, we don't care. We're going to keep doing this. We'll deny it publicly, and we're going to keep doing it.
And I want to thank you, General. I want to end very quickly here from the two of you. Tom, what does he do at this summit?
My advice, he's got to take a position on Nord Stream 2. He's got to prevent Russia from breaking up the European Union, and he's got to do it from a position of strength, meaning he lays out a path in which we apply meaningful sanctions to their oil revenues, Russia's, and to their sovereign wealth.
Nilo.
Look, messages don't work with Putin. Actions do. We have to take action. We have really good example of how action works in protecting the 2018 midterm elections and shutting down Russian influence operations, taking a whole-of-government approach with the FBI authorities working with the private sector, with DHS and its mandate to protect elections, with Cyber Command and its ability to operate overseas. So we need to take action. It's not just about delivering those messages. And there are three things we can do today. Including, by the way, regulate cryptocurrency becomes so important if we want to stop ransomware, which is a scourge right now in cyberspace.
Thanks to all of you. It's really fascinating discussion.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.